The story begins in the Irish countryside where single mother Sarah O'Neill moves into a new house with her young son Chris. They left their old life behind and came for a fresh start. Sarah has a job in a small antique shop in town, and in her free time she fixes and renovates their new home. One afternoon, while Sarah and Chris are driving back, Chris keeps asking his mother to buy him a bicycle. Sarah refuses, which makes him upset. Suddenly, a strange old woman appears in the middle of the road. Sarah slams the brakes, barely avoiding hitting her. The woman's name is Norine Brady, and she lives nearby. Something about her feels unsettling. She seems mentally unstable and whispers strange things under her breath. Sarah apologizes for not seeing her, but Norine barely responds. Instead, she stares at Chris in a disturbing way, making it uncomfortable. Sarah decides not to stay, picks up the broken side mirror, and drives away with Chris. At home, Sarah and Chris share a close relationship. Despite the stress of moving and starting over, they play a small game where they make funny faces, and whoever laughs first loses. One day, Chris screams when he finds a spider in the kitchen. Sarah catches it in a jar and plans to release it outside. Chris gets angry because he thinks the spider might come back. In frustration, he says his dad would have killed it if he were there. The mention of Chris's father affects Sarah, but she avoids explaining and only says things are complicated. Chris gets even more upset. He crushes the spider and accuses Sarah of lying to him about his father. Then he runs into the nearby forest. Their house is close to the woods, so Sarah runs after him. As she searches for Chris among the trees, she discovers something shocking: a massive sinkhole hidden deep inside the forest. It is wide and dark, like the earth has swallowed a piece of land. Sarah feels uneasy just looking at it. At that moment, Chris appears behind her. He apologizes for mentioning his father and upsetting her. Sarah hugs him tightly and leads him away, not wanting him near the hole. A few days later, Sarah picks Chris up from school and notices he has a flyer for a school talent show. Since Chris is new and doesn't have friends yet, Sarah encourages him to participate so he can meet other kids. Later that evening, Sarah invites a few new acquaintances over for dinner. One of them is Louise, Chris's school teacher. During the conversation, the topic of the strange woman Norine comes up. Louise explains that years ago Norine caused a disturbing scene at her son's school. She insisted the boy was not really her son, but someone pretending to be him. Because of her behavior, Norine was taken to a mental hospital. Months later, after she was released, her son James died in a tragic accident when he was run over by a car. People in town still argue about whether it was truly an accident or something more disturbing. That night, the story takes a darker turn. Sarah wakes up in the middle of the night after hearing noises inside the house. When she checks on Chris, she is terrified to see his bed is empty. Even worse, the back door is open. Panicking, Sarah runs outside toward the forest, fearing something happened to her son. But the woods are dark and silent, and she can't find him. Frightened, she rushes back inside and calls the police. While she is trying to explain on the phone, she suddenly hears a voice behind her. When she turns around, she is shocked to see Chris standing calmly near his bedroom door. Confused, Sarah asks where he went, but Chris replies that he never left his room and has been there the whole time. Sarah is left standing there, unable to understand what just happened. The next morning, Sarah worries something might be wrong with her. The strange events from the previous night make her feel like she could be hallucinating, so she calls a doctor to the house. He checks her and asks about the scar on her forehead, which Sarah says came from a car accident about a year earlier. After hearing her concerns, the doctor prescribes mild sleeping medication and assures her the pills aren't very strong. Still, Sarah can't shake the feeling that she might be losing control of her own mind. He says stress can do strange things and tells her to rest whenever she can. The following morning, Chris surprises Sarah with a bunch of flowers he picked outside. Sarah scolds him for leaving the house without permission, but Chris says he only wanted to surprise her. The gesture softens her mood, and she hugs him tightly. Later that day, when Sarah picks Chris up from school, something strange happens again. On their way home, they see Norine, the old woman from before, standing in the middle of the road once more. Sarah honks, but Norine doesn't move. Sarah steps out and politely asks her to move aside so they can pass. Up close, Norine whispers again in a disturbing tone. This time she repeats a chilling sentence: "That's not your boy." Before it can get worse, Norine's husband, Des Brady, arrives and apologizes for his wife's behavior. He tries to calm her and take her home, but Norine runs towards Sarah's car and bangs on the window, staring at Chris. She repeats the same words: "That's not your son." She even hits her head against the glass, frantic to reach him. Terrified, Sarah drives away with Chris while Des struggles to restrain his wife. Despite her fear, Sarah later feels guilty about how it ended. The next day, while dropping Chris off at school, she stops by the Brady house to apologize to Des. She tells Chris to wait in the car while she goes to the garden. But the moment she enters the yard, Sarah makes a horrifying discovery. Norine is lying dead on the ground, her body twisted, and her head partly buried in the dirt as birds circle overhead. Shocked and frightened, Sarah contacts the authorities. Soon, police arrive and question her since she found the body. While giving her statement, Sarah notices Chris nearby with one of the officers. The officer is playfully arm wrestling with him to keep him entertained. For a brief moment, Sarah feels a flash of fear as she imagines Chris using unnatural strength, overpowering the officer and breaking his arm. But it vanishes almost instantly, and she realizes it was only her imagination. The officer is fine. Still, the thought lingers in Sarah's mind. The next day, Sarah attends Norine's funeral at the Brady house. Wanting answers, she approaches Des, offers condolences, and asks about the strange things Norine used to say. Des explains that when their son James was younger, everything seemed normal. But after he turned about 8, Norine noticed small changes in his behavior. She became convinced the boy living with them wasn't their real son, but an imposter pretending to be him. Everyone believed Norine had lost her mind, and she was taken to a mental hospital for treatment. Des then reveals something even more tragic. When Norine was released months later, James died in a car accident. The car that hit him was Des's own. He insists it was a terrible accident, not something Norine caused on purpose. Hearing this deeply unsettles Sarah. The things Norine said about children not being who they seem echo again in her mind, making her question things she never doubted before. Days pass, and Sarah tries to return to a normal routine, but the strange feeling inside her won't disappear. One morning, she goes jogging through the forest. While running the trail, she notices something on the ground, Chris's favorite action figure. The discovery shocks her. Chris insisted he never left the house that night, so Sarah can't understand how the toy ended up deep in the forest. The find strengthens a disturbing thought in her mind. At breakfast, Sarah confronts Chris. She asks if he went into the woods without telling her. Chris calmly denies it and says he never left the house. Sarah places the action figure on the table and demands an explanation. As she keeps pressing him for the truth, Chris suddenly gets angry. In a burst of frustration, he pushes the heavy dining table towards Sarah with surprising strength, something that seems impossible for a child his age. The moment he realizes what he's done, Chris looks frightened and apologizes before running to his room. Although Chris seems genuinely sorry, Sarah's doubts only grow. She can't stop thinking about Norine's warning, that sometimes a child might not really be who they appear to be. That night, Sarah passes Chris's bedroom and hears strange noises inside. Nervous, she looks through the keyhole and the small gap under the door. What she sees terrifies her. Chris is moving around the room on all fours, acting almost like an animal. Then he catches a spider crawling along the floor and eats it. It's too much for Sarah to process. She retreats to her room, trying to convince herself she must be imagining it. The next day, Sarah takes Chris to a doctor for a checkup. Physically, the doctor finds nothing wrong. When Sarah privately explains the changes she's noticed in Chris's behavior, the doctor becomes concerned about Sarah's mental health instead. He suggests stress and anxiety may be affecting her perception. During the conversation, another truth is revealed. The scar on Sarah's forehead wasn't caused by a random accident, as she claimed. Chris's father had been abusive, and Sarah eventually left him to protect herself and her son. The doctor believes those experiences may still be affecting her, but Sarah is no longer sure what to believe. She begins watching Chris more closely. He no longer plays with his toys the way he used to. Instead, he often sits quietly watching television and eating large amounts of food, as if his habits have changed. Determined to learn the truth, Sarah installs a small video camera inside Chris's bedroom, hiding it in the wall so she can record what happens at night. Around this time, she starts having nightmares. In one dream, Chris attacks her and pushes his fingers into the scar on her head, reopening the wound. When Sarah wakes up, she knows it was only a nightmare, but the fear remains. A few days later, Sarah attends a school talent show where Chris's class performs in a choir. The children sing a strange folk song about a mysterious hole hidden in a bog. As Sarah listens, the atmosphere feels unsettling. For a moment, it seems the hall goes dark and everyone disappears. In her mind, she sees Chris standing alone on stage, staring at her with an emotionless expression, while repeating the eerie lyrics. Terrified, Sarah rushes out in panic. When Chris's teacher Louise finds her outside and asks what's wrong, Sarah says something shocking, almost repeating Norine's words. She whispers, "That's not my son." Chris soon appears with his teacher, confused about what's happening. Sarah can't face him and quickly leaves the school. When she returns home, she retrieves the camera and watches the footage from Chris's room. What she sees on the recording frightens her. Shaken and desperate for answers, Sarah takes the camera and visits Des Brady again. She tells him that whatever happened to his son James might now be happening to Chris too. Des listens quietly, but refuses to accept that anything unnatural ever happened to his son. Angered by Sarah's accusations, he throws the camera to the floor and breaks it, refusing to admit he saw anything unusual. Even so, Sarah is more convinced than ever that something is terribly wrong with the boy living in her house. After leaving Des's house, Sarah picks up the broken camera and takes the memory card. She keeps the memory card safe in her pocket as she walks. When she returns home, Chris is already there, waiting. He looks worried and asks why she ran away from him at the school. Sarah says she wasn't feeling well, which is why she left so suddenly. Chris hugs her and says he gets scared when she disappears like that because he doesn't want to be left alone. Sarah promises she won't do that again. Later that evening, Sarah secretly mixes the sleeping medication into Chris's food. Chris eats without complaining, even though it's something he normally dislikes. After dinner, Sarah asks him to play their usual funny face game, the one they always played together. But Chris looks confused and says he doesn't remember the game at all. At that moment, Sarah's fear turns into certainty. She looks at him and says, "You are not my son." The creature wearing Chris's face becomes violent. It growls and attacks Sarah, throwing her around the kitchen with terrifying strength until she loses consciousness. When Sarah wakes up, the creature is dragging her into the backyard. Just like Norine's body earlier, it starts burying Sarah's head in the ground. But before it can finish, the sedatives Sarah put in the food take effect. The creature collapses unconscious. Sarah frees herself from the dirt and regains control. She drags the creature back inside and locks it in the basement. Remembering what Des said about Norine using mirrors to reveal the truth, Sarah takes the broken side mirror from her car and looks at the creature's reflection. In the mirror, the boy's face disappears, revealing a horrifying, faceless monster beneath the disguise. The creature wakes up and screams, struggling violently in the basement, but Sarah locks the door and escapes upstairs. Now she understands what Norine had been warning her about. Sarah believes her real son might still be alive, and she knows where it started, the sinkhole in the forest. She grabs a flashlight and runs into the woods. She reaches the massive hole and slides down into it. It leads into a narrow underground tunnel, forcing Sarah to crawl through the darkness. Eventually, she reaches a larger cave filled with old human bones. In the middle, she finds the real Chris, lying unconscious, but alive. As Sarah picks him up, several faceless creatures wake up inside the cave. These monsters live underground and replace humans by creating perfect copies. Sarah escapes into the tunnel while carrying Chris. Because it's so tight, only one creature can follow at a time. One monster grabs her wrist and briefly copies Sarah's face, but she fights back and hits it with her flashlight until she breaks free. Finally, Sarah and Chris climb out of the hole and reach the surface. They rush back toward the house. Sarah places the real Chris near the car and goes inside for her keys. From the basement, she hears the fake Chris calling for her, pretending to be helpless. Sarah knows the creature will never stop hunting them, so she makes a final decision. She sets the house on fire, trapping the creature in the basement while she escapes with her real son. Sometime later, Sarah and Chris are living in a new city, trying to start another fresh life. But Sarah has never forgotten what happened. Their new house is filled with mirrors, and Sarah often checks Chris's face carefully, as if making sure no creature has replaced him. Even though they survived, Sarah still fears that beneath the earth, those creatures are waiting, ready to take another child and replace them with something else.